What's up? I'm John Middlekauff, the host of the 3 and Out podcast, and you can find it below in the description. Also, you're watching this on the Volumes YouTube channel. I need you to subscribe right now. Share with your friends. What is going on, everybody? John Middlekauff, 3 and Out podcast. How is everyone doing on this? Well, if you're listening, it's probably Tuesday or Wednesday. I'm recording this on Monday, and the football world's getting back into the swing of things. I think basically every team in the league reports in the next couple days, and then we're off and running. Well, not really, because there are rules in the CBA. We're probably 6-7 days away from anyone putting on shoulder pads, helmets, and pants to actually play football, but just getting everyone in the same building all across the country is a start. I'm excited. Football season is back. Let's go. There was a story that came out before I hit record today that is just right up my wheelhouse. And I've been saying this for a while, that something's just off with Kyler. I can't quite describe it. I don't know him personally. I don't really know anyone with Arizona, but I just had the situation red flagged from last season to then this offseason demanding a contract, and then the Cardinals capitulating and paying him. And there was a clause that surfaced today because of Ian Rappaport, Rap Sheet, I like Rap Sheet, threw it out there, which, listen, sometimes you have to, when you see a piece of news, you have to go, why did that go out? And I think the reason that went out is the Cardinals would want Rap Sheet to put that out before the Florios and the other blogs of the world put that out and started talking a lot of shit. Now, it was inevitable once it got out, but it's like they were trying to get in front of it. And listen, the clause was basically forcing him to study independently 4 hours a week. He had to study on his own, separate from practice, separate from meetings, separate from working with the coaches, independently on his own for 4 hours. We're all kids. Anyone that grew up in a home where your parents told you to do your homework can relate. They forced you to do your homework and study. I hated academia. Me and academia did not see eye to eye. And part of it was every time from high school to college, I was studying things that did not interest me. Now, looking back, some of the courses I took in college would have a lot more interest to me now. I took a lot of business courses. It bored me at the time. And part of it is I'm a hands-on guy. I need to be able to relate to what they're talking about. And at the time, I don't have any money. I've never had real jobs beside working construction or working on the ranch. I can't relate to what I'm learning about in finance and accounting classes. Now, looking back, I wish I would have learned more. But that spoke to who I am. I need to have my hands into it. And most importantly, the thing I've learned the most for me personally, and I think a lot of people can relate, I've never been more curious in life. The time I got the most curious is when I left school, because I got to focus and listen. I guess I'm lucky, but I don't necessarily consider myself lucky. I did what I wanted to do. And when you do what you want to do, that usually means you're passionate about it. And the more passionate about something you are, the more time you're willing to put into this. Am I a little tired? Could I have waited next week to do a bunch of podcasts? Sure. I like podcasting. I like football. I don't view this as work. Just like a lot of people, like Elon Musk can spend a lot of time on Tesla. He's passionate about it. Bezos with his company, all these guys, from entrepreneurs to workers to a million of you guys listening right now. If you like what you do, you're more willing to put more time into it. And the more time you put into something, usually the better you get at it. That's the way the world works. Now, some people are more gifted initially, right? And Kyler is a good example. Kyler is a freak athlete, one of the greatest athletes we've ever seen in the history of the NFL at the quarterback position. Not in terms of size, but just in terms of ability to run, arm strength, change of direction, the whole deal. But in terms of studying, clearly, he doesn't like it. And to me, that reflects when you have to force someone to study, one, I red flag the entire situation. And this gets back to who would pay someone that amount of money when I'm not even sure he loves football? Because if you love football, studying would come natural to you. Why? It means a lot to you. Do you think Tiger Woods, when he was hitting balls all those years, hour after hour after hour after hour, looked at it like work? No, he looked at it like part of the process to go kick the shit out of everyone in golf tournaments. Do you think Peyton Manning and Tom Brady counted the clock punched in and punched out when it came to film study. Tom's still playing. Of course not. Why? Because they know they have to do that to be great at football. They are able to study film. Why? They're addicted to it. It means everything to them. And usually to be great at something at the highest level, you kind of have to be addicted to it. There's no 50-50 balance. Well, I put this time in here, and then I get to take my kids to Little League. And listen, I'm all for taking my kids to Little League or eating dinner with your family. You can do both, but typically you have to sacrifice something. And playing quarterback is no different than running company, is no different than dominating as a sales job. You usually have to put an inordinate amount of time at doing that to be great at it. And when you do that, the only way to sustain that is to be addicted and love what you're doing. Because if you don't, it makes what you're doing a chore. And I'm lucky enough to know different people in the league. And I'll never forget when Patrick Mahomes was first coming on, the way they spoke about that guy's love of football. And then as he's become the starter, his love of preparation, how much work and time he puts into it. Because in Patrick's mind, putting time into it is not like digging a ditch. It's not like doing something that you don't want to do. And I say it all the time. Whatever you do as a job, whether you're an NFL quarterback, whether you run Amazon, or whether you drive a tractor, there are going to be parts of your job that you do not like to do. That's human nature. Whether you're Belichick or whether you're the dude selling burgers at McDonald's, there are going to be things at your job that you don't like to do. That's just part of being a human being. But the more you love what you're doing and the more passionate about what you do, you're involved with, the easier it makes everything that kind of suck part of your job come along with it and makes you go above and beyond. And when I saw this clause, my first reaction was, I don't think Kyler Murray likes football that much. And there are a ton of people that have a lot of success in the NFL, in the NBA, in professional sports, hell, in any profession that don't like their job that much. So he would not be an outlier there. But to be a great quarterback, I think it is humanly and just impossible. I don't think it's sustainable. I don't think you can be consistent at a high level if you are not addicted to the process of being a great quarterback. It's not possible. Because look at every single guy that has success in the league. They study. I've heard these stories from Eli Manning to Peyton Manning to Tom Brady to Aaron Rodgers to now Patrick Mahomes. The amount of hours they put in, not on the practice field and not on the weight room, in the film room, studying the opponent, it's probably 15 to 20 hours a week on their own. Do you know that most high-level quarterbacks, the way the work week in the NFL works, you get Tuesdays off, right? So you win on Sunday. A lot of coaches give you Monday and Tuesday off. If you lose, sometimes you do some stuff on Monday, but it's guaranteed by the league through the CBA that you get Tuesday off. Do you know that most starting quarterbacks on Tuesday spend 3 or 4 hours, usually with the backup quarterback as well, preparing for the opponent, doing their own independent film study? So when they get to their offensive coordinator, head coach, quarterback coach, install on Wednesday, they're not coming in blind. They know what they're getting into. They have an opinion. It's pretty clear that Kyler Murray, and honestly, I still can't get over them paying him. One, we knew the leadership stuff. They admitted it last year when they overpaid J.J. Watt to bring him in because they needed a leader in the room. Now, you can argue that's not overpaying, but when you draft a quarterback number 1 overall, if that guy, and then he's a good player, if he can't take some leadership, you got issues. And there was also a story earlier in the weekend that I think $9 million in Kyler Murray's contract were tied to the offseason and the workouts. So they have put in clauses for studying and off-season workouts with the team. This guy reads to me like some diva NBA player. Who in their right mind would pay this guy? Who in their right mind? You don't get paid for doing your chores when you're a kid getting the allowance until you do them. The reason that Josh Allen got paid, that Patrick Mahomes got paid, that Lamar eventually got paid, is because these teams trust not just the player, but the guy. It's one thing at some of these other positions, but at quarterback, given the investment that you have to make, I have to put in a clause that you have to study on your own. It's one of the biggest red flags I've ever seen in the history of the NFL. In terms of a guy that's going to be on a team for a while, a contract being made. It is mind-boggling. Honestly, I would say my jaw hit the floor, but I'm not really surprised. This is why, and any time that you tell me that a quarterback does not like to study, does not like to watch film, does not like to prepare for an opponent during the season, I will short the living shit out of that guy's career. I will take, if you want to take that guy to succeed, I'll take the opposite. I will go against that guy's future success. And I feel even better about my stance on this whole organization because of this clause. This clause is symbolic of the Arizona Cardinals. And the irony is, like, the only reason I don't like Cliff Kingsbury is because of his offense. Cliff Kingsbury, from a work ethic standpoint, I remember watching this thing when he was at Texas Tech. Dude's a grinder. He might look like a playboy partier. That's not the issue with him. The irony with Kyler Murray is he's the lazy one. And that's not possible to do in the NFL to be successful. Two guys in the NFC West this year, two quarterbacks, got huge contract extensions. Kyler Murray, Matt Stafford. One of the stories last year with Matt Stafford, him and Cooper Kupp would meet at like 5:30 a.m. multiple times a week to watch film just together. Not with the coaches, not with other players, just those two. It's the price of admission. It's a grinder's league. This is a working man's league. And when I say that, time takes a lot of time. Maybe you can show up as a wide receiver or running back and not put in the time and get off on your God-given instincts. It is impossible to do at quarterback. And to me, you can't force a guy to want to study. People did for 23 years of my life. I did not care. My parents, teachers. Do you know when I learned to study? When I wanted to study. When I became passionate about it. For the last 10 years, doing what I'm doing, whether it was in the NFL or now doing podcasts and streaming. That interests me. That fascinates me. And I've given all my time for it. Because most people listening, once you become passionate and once you're all in, you give a lot of your time naturally. Kyler doesn't like football. I think he likes maybe the ability to play football on a Sunday, but that's not football. The NFL is studying all week to get ready. That's Peyton Manning. That's Tom Brady. That's Aaron Rodgers. That's Matt Stafford. That's what it takes. And this guy clearly doesn't like doing that. Not even debatable at this time. I also think this contract and the Deshaun Watson contract reflect something. Winners like winners. High-level people associate with high-level people. Losers do loser things. Losers do dumb things. And I think about, when you just think from a football perspective, the way the Steelers over the years have handled stuff. Whether it's from just the criticism of Mike Tomlin, last year with TJ Watt, the years of Antonio Brown and Le'Veon Bell, it just always felt like a high-level operation. I would say the same thing about the Green Bay Packers. Not everything's perfect with both those organizations, but there is a consistency there. There is a reason that they constantly win and just high-level things happen. Devontae Adams asked for a trade. He says, I don't want to play here. I'm not going to sign an extension. That's not an easy thing to handle. They handled it pretty damn well. And I just look at organizations like the Browns, who have been a clown show basically my entire adult life. I look at the Cardinals, who, beside a little blip of Bruce Arians and the 1 year of Kurt Warner, have been known as one of the cheapest franchises in all of American sports and have been pretty bad for 30 years. Dumb organizations that don't have the backbone of success and truly know what it looks like, do things like this. Give a guy $230 million guaranteed when he has half of Texas's massage therapists accusing him of not good things, improprieties, stuff that gets you in trouble. The Cardinals, who don't have a long history of success, give a quarterback, I still haven't seen the true guaranteed money, a shitload of cash when he doesn't like to study football. Do you think the Steelers or the Packers or the Patriots would have done something like that? Of course not. But this is what loser mentality, and honestly, I don't blame Steve Keim. I don't even blame Cliff Kingsbury. They're all in. Their jobs are tied to this guy. It is what it is. I blame the owner. I blame Jimmy Haslam, and I blame Michael Bidwell. In what world would you give a contract to these two individuals, given the information that you have? It's easy to give $150 million guaranteed to Aaron Rodgers. He's one of the best players we've ever seen. He's carried a franchise. You know what you're getting. It's easy to ride Mahomes and Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson. You feel very, very good about the person and the player. In what world, every single other owner, super rich ones, David Tepper, one of the greatest stock traders in the history of stock trading, Arthur Blank, a guy worth an astronomical amount of money, they both said when Deshaun Watson's agent gave the number to kick rocks, FOH, hang up, click, no, not happening. Well, what did the loser Browns do? How much you want? $230? Guaranteed, all you. Kyler Murray, I want a new contract. I have to get paid. Well, actually, you don't. You have several years left on your contract. And based on the evidence we have of you in the building and on the field, we'd like a little more before we gave it to you. Instead, he wins, he gets his money, and you have to do insane clauses like the one they just gave him. This is not the stuff high-level organizations do. And there's a reason why in any business, in any industry, losers lose and winners win. And I think both those two contracts are a great example, because in what world could you have signed either one of those contracts based on what we know? This is not private information. Publicly now, we all know, and we're all laughing. Speaking of the quarterback tiers, and listen, I when it comes to quarterback tiers, I don't even know what to do with Deshaun Watson. I would not put him on. He hasn't played football in a year. Whenever the suspension happens, who knows how long that's going to be. But when the next time we're going to see him, when he plays again, then I'll have an opinion. But right now, I don't even view him as an NFL player because he's not. We don't ever see him playing. I would also put Kyler Murray in that category as well. Though, I mean, he's a top 15, 12-ish quarterback, but I don't really know what to make of him. I also put a huge premium when I do the quarterback tiers on experience and sustaining something. Like most people in any business who have some talent can have a great 6 months, can have a great year. Think how many people made a ton of money the last couple of years, investing in stocks, maybe flipping some homes. It was pretty easy to make cash, especially if you had some capital. Even if you didn't have that much capital, if you just took a couple risks, you could 3, 4, 5x your money. Try doing that today. Can you do that today? Can you enter this market, whether it be the housing market, whether it be the stock market, make a bunch of money? Because if you can, then I'm impressed. That's impressive. It's why the people in the stock market, these people that financially manage people's money that for a 30-year period average a high percentage of return for their clients. That factors in the good times and the bad times. I've seen Aaron Rodgers in the good times and the bad times. I've seen Tom Brady in the good times and the bad times. Answers the bell every single year. I've seen Patrick Mahomes now for however many years he's been starting. I guess it would have been 17, or was it 18? Whatever it was. And every single year, I know what I'm getting. To me, those three guys are in a tier by themselves. They are the best players in their own tier. Then my next two guys I would have to put based on experience, success at the highest level, and just the resume would be Russell Wilson and Matt Stafford. I can't put Russell Wilson and Matt Stafford around guys like Josh Allen, Justin Herbert, Joe Burrow. Not because I don't love Justin Herbert or Joe Burrow. Those guys just haven't done it that long. I saw Matt Stafford for a decade, and we went, God damn, he might be one of the most talented guys in the league, but his team never wins. Well, what did we learn? Matt Stafford played for the Lions, right? A complete joke organization. Got him with the Rams, Super Bowl champ. I think he threw the third or fourth most touchdowns in the league last year. Actually, it might have been second. And he won the Super Bowl. He's validated. It turns out it wasn't Matt Stafford. It was the Lions. And listen, Russell Wilson had a weird year, and maybe he's trending in the wrong way. But based on his body of work, Super Bowl champion, I'm sorry. He's done way more than those other guys. And then the other guys, to me, are just in their own category of guys that are trending up, guys that you would want as your quarterbacks, and just studs. So to me, I have three guys who are elite. Aaron Rodgers has been the best player in the league now for 2 years. Tom Brady's the best quarterback of all time. Patrick Mahomes, who had one of the greatest starts, who has had one of the greatest starts in the history of the NFL. Those guys are in their own category for me. Then I go Russell and Stafford. And then I go the crew of young guys. It's basically Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, Justin Herbert, Joe Burrow. The way I would rank those would be Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, Justin Herbert, or Burrow, Herbert, however you want to rank them. I don't even care. But those guys are all studs, but they just haven't done it that long. And Lamar had his first kind of glitch. He got hurt. I want to see how he bounces back. Joe Burrow was awesome. Took the Bengals to the Super Bowl. Can he do it again? What's it look like when he's the hunted? Justin Herbert, like every single team I've talked to, had him ranked as a top 5 quarterback last year. Every single one. Now, you'd go, well, his team, they went 9-8. They didn't make the playoffs. I go, I don't put that on him because without him, they're like a 4-win team. Their defense was atrocious. Their coach, kind of a clown show last year. Defense was awful, blew the game against the Raiders. Like, I just don't put that on Justin Herbert. Now, if they go 9-8, 9-8, 9-8 again, maybe we have to evaluate it. But right now, I put those guys in their own tier. And then you have the group of Dak, Cousins, Carr, all guys that are solid NFL quarterbacks. All guys that clearly, if you have a solid team, can get you to the playoffs. And I think we all agree that's kind of the group that's in the top. And then you got Watson, and I don't really, like I said, I don't know what to do with Kyler. He doesn't like studying football. Other guys that didn't like studying football? Jamarcus Russell. Now, Kyler is much more talented than Jamarcus, naturally accurate, and maybe he's just better at football. But, I'm sorry, I don't even know what to do with you. And Deshaun, you don't even play football anymore. When you play football again, then I can put you on a tier. And all the other guys I don't really care about. The Baker Mayfields, the Sam Darnolds, the Zach Wilsons, I don't even, we go through Drew Locks. I don't even know what to make of them. The Jameis Winstons, to me, they're irrelevant until they prove otherwise. They're just starting NFL quarterbacks who all those teams would replace if they could with any of the guys above them. It's a fascinating, if you have the athletic, I recommend it. The quotes are cool, but I really believe that the top basically 12, 13 guys are just in a different category than everyone else. And even in those 13 guys are all in their own separate categories. And I heard Coward say that Matt Stafford, I can't have Matt Stafford below Justin Herbert, or below Lamar Jackson or Josh Allen. What are we doing? We had a decade worth of Matt Stafford, and then we saw Matt Stafford with a real organization. And here's the other thing. I've said this forever. I judge you the most in playoff games. If it wasn't for the playoffs, James Harden would be one of the greatest NBA players of all time. Except the playoffs have happened, and we've seen him crumble like a cookie. If it wasn't for the playoffs, Chris Paul would be known as fucking the second greatest point guard behind Magic Johnson of all time. Except the playoffs have happened, and he's not, right? There's a reason that Steph Curry, LeBron James, Tom Brady, Derek Jeter, you get extra credit for doing it when it matters the most. Tiger Woods won a lot of majors. That matters. Nadal, Djokovic, winning the Grand Slams, kind of more important than some random tournaments. So when you do it at the highest level in the biggest moments, even though Stafford obviously has had the one, playoff run, how many would he have had if he would have been played for the Rams for the last 5 years? Would he have 6 playoff victories? Probably. The guy's really good. And obviously Russell Wilson, I know he hasn't done it necessarily recently, but every single year taking his team to the playoffs with flawed teams, especially the second half with kind of Pete and that franchise kind of going in the different direction. I want to get to one last thing. There was breaking news. It's not really big news, that Gutekunst and LaFleur, they got extended in Green Bay. And I think, and listen, I'm just as guilty as anybody. It's just society, right? We make huge judgments immediately when things happen, whether it be a trade, whether it be a coach hiring or a coach firing. One of the most famous graphics is that year that Doug Peterson got hired. McAdoo, I think, was in his class. McAdoo was an A, Peterson was an F, and then obviously Doug won the Super Bowl. McAdoo fired a little bit later. We just make draft nights. We make big judgments. And it's proven over and over how little it matters, right? Who you draft on draft night, everyone's excited. 5 years later, that pick might be a bust. That pick might be a Hall of Famer. We don't know until we get more information. Now, and we specifically do it a lot with firings, hirings, and trades. I remember when the Raiders traded Khalil Mack. The Sloan Conference, the Daryl Morey academia, analytic crew, said it was one of the greatest trades in NFL history. Turns out it was a disaster. Why? Because the players the Raiders used the picks on sucked. part of like getting a lot of picks back is nailing the picks. Part of the reason Danny Ainge gets a lot of credit for the trade he made with the Brooklyn Nets once upon a time is because when he traded Kevin Garnett and he traded Paul Pierce and he got all those picks back from the Nets, he nailed a bunch of picks. Getting Jason Tatum, getting Jaylen Brown. I think Marcus Smart might have been he might have been in that crew too. Like, you get credit for not just accumulating picks. I don't care if you get 7 million picks. If you miss on them, who gives a shit? I don't care. Like, ultimately, the 49ers couldn't get along with Jim Harbaugh. They fired him. I know they claimed it was mutual. It wasn't. They fired him. They hired Jim Tom Sula. They lost. It was a disaster. So when I saw, years ago, Rodgers, McCarthy butting heads, and it was hard to tell at the time because they had spent their entire career. Obviously, Rodgers was clearly a great player, but I think we all thought McCarthy was a pretty solid coach. And rumors were coming out. Rodgers thinks he's a village idiot, and you're like, he can't be that bad. Well, we have the information. The Packers, one, they know what they're doing, and Rodgers was right. And then the Packers went and replaced him with LaFleur, who's been fantastic. And Gutekunst, who I said last year, they don't teach you being a scout how to deal with situations like Aaron Rodgers. That's a human situation. You either have it or you don't. You either know how to deal with people or you don't. And clearly, I give Gutekunst a lot of credit. He figured it out. Everyone's kind of getting along. And the Packers, years later now, look like enormous winners. Because today, a headline I saw on Pro Football Talk, McCarthy's already getting asked about his job status. Of course he is. People think, and rightfully so, he's not that good at his job. He doesn't call the offensive plays. His team's undisciplined. I mean, last year I know they won some games, but they played in a terrible division. And I think it's justified so. Like, did Jerry hire the right guy? Hell, when he got hired, he said he watched every game of the Packers or every game of the Cowboys. Remember that? And then in the press conference, he laughed and he said he lied. It's like, is this guy just full of shit? And the Packers, LaFleur clearly is really good. Part of getting along with star players, that's a skill. Not everyone can do that. He can. And then he implemented the Shanahan offense, and it's helped Rodgers get back to some of the best football he's ever played in his life. And Gutekunst's been a fantastic general manager. And they didn't just nail that move. Like, that's one of the smartest transitions they've ever had in the franchise. It's not easy to do because even if McCarthy, we all agree, is average at best, sometimes it's hard to replace coaches. And when you fire a guy, there's no guarantee you're going to hire a good coach. And they didn't just hire a good coach, they hired a good GM too. And now they kind of have this duo that you feel really good about. One of the best, you would say, combinations in the league. They've handled a lot of turmoil. They handled some tough times. They've won 13 games. I know they haven't won a Super Bowl, but only one team wins Super Bowl every year. And let's face it, beside Tom Brady, there is you could argue Aaron Rodgers is Super Bowl or bust, but he's only been to one. So I'd argue no. Like, every year that they go to the NFC Championship game and just have an opportunity to be one of the Final Four, like that's a win. That's a fact. So the Packers nailed that transition. Thanks for watching 3 and Out. You can check out the podcast below in the description, and make sure you subscribe right now to the Volumes YouTube channel.